Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the official side event room at COP28. My name is George Lee, the Director of International Project for the Renewable Energy Association from the UK. Today, before everything starts, I want to take a 30-second silence dedicated to everybody who lost their life in the war for the past year. Please be with me and pray for peace. Our session today will be talking about how do we enable the immediately actionable technology and investment to decarbonize the global energy system. We have a distinguished panel from Adam Peck, the Managing Director for Lightsource BP, Professor Deborah Greaves from the University of Plymouth, Thomas Harish from the Coastal Development Partnership from Bangladesh, and Yang from Budweiser. Before I let the panel start speaking, I'll do a brief introduction of the leading organization who's organizing this event, the Association for Renewable Energy and Clean Technology in the UK. We are the largest pan-technology trade association representing all renewable technology in the UK. We have about 500 members, and we do every technology that you can imagine in the renewable sector. Our main job for the past 3 decades is to help the British government to lay out long-term, stable, and functional policy to guide the increase of renewable energy intake in the energy system and other areas that requires energy. However, about 3 years ago, we took a more bold expansion on the international arena to try to connect the UK to the international market, but also introducing the international market back to the UK market if anybody is interested. We're very happy to attend COP28. This is our 3rd time attending COP as an observer and our 2nd time hosting an official side event. Our partner joining us today will do a short introduction of their company.
Thank you, George, and thank you, REA, for the opportunity. The company is fully backed by BP. BP's onshore developer as well, which is really exciting for the business. So great to be here and be part of COP and some of the discussions that are happening with governments and corporates and other communities and developers. And I think there's been real good progress made in the first few days, particularly with the trebling of the renewable energy commitments by 2030. So yeah, thanks again for having me.
Deborah?
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I don't know if we can move the slides on, or is that coming later? Okay. Do you want me to? Yes, thank you very much. So my name's Deborah Greaves from the University of Plymouth in the UK. I'm Professor of Ocean Engineering, and I'm also the Director for the Supergen Offshore and Offshore Renewable Energy. This is a large programme of research which is funded by the UK government, UKRI, and it's invested £16.5 million from the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council in research to help provide research leadership in offshore renewable energy and really help to advance and accelerate the advancement of the development of offshore renewable energy solutions within the UK. We connect together, we bring together academic partners across the UK with industry and policy to try and make sure that the research agenda is well curated and relevant and transferable into practice. We also work internationally. We bring different disciplines together and we support the ecosystem environment of offshore renewable energy research and development within the UK. So on the next slide, thank you. Some of the latest developments in offshore renewable energy within the UK are in the development of floating offshore wind. Within the Supergen, then our research is very much targeted around floating offshore wind, but also wave energy and...
My name is Thomas Hirsch. Other than said, I'm not working with Coastal Development Partnership in Bangladesh. Not a problem. They are partnering with me. The name of my consultancy firm is called Climate and Development Advice. We are based in Germany. We are working with associated consultants. Give one example. Over the last 10 years, we have accompanied a part. We start with the landscape, look for solutions, look at the target groups, and then try to find appropriate solutions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning. Morning, George. Morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here to the panel. I'm Jan Kleisner. I'm responsible for procurement and sustainability at Budweiser. Different priorities in different countries, depending on the needs of those countries. Like India is very focused on water stewardship and agriculture, for example. China, on the other side, has less focus at this moment on water stewardship, much more on climate action and urbanization. So every country has a bit of its own priorities at the moment, but these do change over time. But we always stick to those 4 key pillars, keep the message simple for our internal people.
The Ukraine-Russian war, and that really choked up supply of every single material, not only renewable energy, but particularly impacted our sector. Increased shipping costs, increased costs of equipment, and we've now gone through that, so we've seen those costs come down, which is great, particularly logistics costs, but also costs of panels as those supply chain issues have now been sorted. I think the key challenge going forward for us now is actually getting enough people into the industry to build out these ambitious targets. There's going to be a few 100,000 people required every year to treble our renewable target by 2030, and getting good skilled people into the industry and encouraging. I mean, Hillary Clinton spoke about getting more female participation into the industry. It's only 30% female participation at the moment, and that's that's a real opportunity, I think. But there's some fantastic things happening around university courses, training. We do a lot of training in-house. So yeah, if you want a job, please come and give me a shout after this. But yeah, I think that's the key challenge, getting enough people in the industry to deliver the target.
Thank you very much. Deborah?
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to mention this report that we're launching today as part of COP28. This is coming from the Supergen Offshore Renewable Energy Hub, and it gives a briefing note on the current context and the challenges around delivery of offshore renewable energy. But I think back to the question on this addresses some of those technical challenges. I think I would agree very much, and just talking a little bit more about the sort of 4 drivers that I mentioned in my introduction. Streamlining, one of the things that is preventing us accelerate the development as fast as we need is the development cost and the time for development. Part of that is how long it takes to set up and develop a project, but also the consenting and permissions, and gaining public support for the project as well. So it's very much a whole systems approach, a multidisciplinary approach that we need to do. We can't just think of the technology, but we need to connect together its interaction with the environment and with public as well. Then on upscaling, I think we need to think about the efficiency and the effectiveness of the solutions, how we can develop our design tools, how we can bring in digital capability in order to speed up the data collection and interpretation in order to help with that. On sustainability, we need to make sure the solutions we're designing are recyclable, are circular, that we're thinking about the circular economy there as well. And I think on the point of upscaling, the workforce development is also very challenging. One of the things that we've done through Supergen, as well as bringing people together across disciplines and across sectors of the stakeholders, we do things like, for example, we've published a children's book which is targeted at early readers, 4 to 6-year-olds, to try and increase public understanding of offshore renewables and inspire the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need to start from the very beginning, train the children going to the workforce. Yeah. What's your take, Thomas?
Well, I would say just implement faster. This is what we need to do. And I will give one example. We have a large-scale potential of solar rooftop systems in the global north as in the global south. but we hardly use it so far. And one reason for that is that most homeowners or company owners are not really aware of the huge potential of that. Using data and digital means is one way to accelerate the learning curve. I would like to give an example from my home state in Germany. This is Baden-Württemberg, one of the most industrialized, developed parts of Germany. Here the government has developed a so-called energy atlas, which shows a solar cadastre where you find your home at Google Street Map level, and from here you can take the solar potential, the radiation potential, and you can get the information how many panels can you put on which of the sides of your roof and what would be the return of investment time period. This is very useful when we look at my home state. So far, 2020, about 45% of electricity was produced by renewables. Biggest part there, solar. And still, only 10% of the entire rooftop potential was used. So if we use the full 100%, we would completely become energy self-sufficient, at least at a calculatory base. I have to close in 30 seconds. I would like to add another example very shortly. I was just last week in Mumbai and learned there that in Mumbai there's a climate action plan and that Mumbai has identified the potential and they could roughly cover half of their energy costs just by using solar rooftop systems. So far, this has been used to use such a nice digital means, which can work as an app, where you as a home just look at that would be very useful to speed up.
Or states, so that is definitely one stumbling block which sometimes prevents us from rolling up, or well, we're not stepping back, we're stepping up our efforts to really, build knowledge with our supply base. Because if you see the maturity level of our suppliers in APAC in general, it is different than what I saw before in Europe or North America. So there we're just using our knowledge, getting out there, sending our people out there, train them, help them to understand, help them to even build a baseline so that we can do roadmaps together. So 2 weeks ago, we had, for example, all our bottle suppliers from China in one room. I know there was like a lot of months work before, but we put them in one room, taking is key for me.
Thank you very much. We need to do more job, more skilled workers, and training start from very, very early age as well. And we also need to move fast because everybody knows what to do, everybody knows the direction, but we need to make sure we involve more people in the process, not just people, also business supply chain, and from a money or capital point of perspective, we need to support the green transition, and we need to make sure when we do procurement, we only procure the sustainable options we have. The second question is slightly more specific, especially we have such a diverse panel. So between all the renewable technologies, what's in your experience how to better manage the complex interaction or interdependence or competition between different options for renewable solutions? I'll start with you again, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of key things there. So first of all, you have to have enough grid so that all of those things can connect. But also importantly, there needs to be a level playing field amongst the technologies. So if we're not picking winners, we need to be reliable. We need to make amazing support like from Budweiser and other corporates in doing voluntary schemes and becoming carbon neutral. And we need to make sure that the mechanism to award a credit that people like Budweiser are buying is transparent and it will communities in the world. And I think so I think that's a worry. I think we've always been very good at
we can. If we were able to, for example, the targets in the UK is variable by 2050, but if it was 200 gigawatts, if we could accelerate that development by 1 year, we would save more than half of our current level of emissions. So, you know, by accelerating or not accelerating or decelerating, it has a significant impact on what we can do in terms of climate change and emissions. So, yes, I think working together, collaborating, finding ways to build those projects together are extremely valuable.
Sorry.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. So I work at Lightsource BP. I lead environmental affairs and government relations. And like my colleague, Adam Pegg, we are really committed to a just transition. And you probably know from him earlier that we are a global market leader. Specifically in the US, we have a 20 gigawatt solar portfolio pipeline. We're active in 25 states. We have 2 gigawatts under construction. This COP is really understand, how we can meet our clean energy goals, utilizing this new law, but also clearing the roadblocks. We have grid, we have community opposition. We have so many challenges that we need to face and problems that we need to solve if we're really going to meet our decarbonization goals in the US and around the world. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Christophe?
Thank you very much, George, for the invitation, and thank you for the REA for having me here. So I'm Christophe Godin. I'm a professor at the University of Western Australia in Perth. I actually have several hats this morning. So I'm the director of the Ocean Institute at the university. The Ocean Institute is a research group, 250 researchers strong, that works on every disciplines associated with oceans. Climate change mitigation and adaptation is very much at the core of our research activities, and the decarbonization from the ocean, that includes offshore renewable energy, but also carbon capture, is one of our 3 priorities. In Australia, that the OES has released very recently, which is called Ocean Energy and Net Zero. This is a strategy to lay out 300 gigawatts of wave and tidal energy by 2050 to support the acceleration of the energy transition, and the tripling of the offshore renewables by 2030 that has been announced recently at COP is a very obviously positive signal, but it is very clear that in addition to accelerate the existing technologies, we will need also to embrace further other technologies like wave and tidal that have not reached commercial maturity yet, but that will be part of the solution. And the report highlights not only the pathway to develop that, but also the socio-economical benefit that we'll obtain out of that. So the next slide, as I mentioned, so I'm the director as well of Marine Energy Research Australia, and so within that endeavor, we are developing locally based, locally funded, community engaged wave energy development in Albany, which I believe is a very good example of developing open. So again, I'll just conclude on the role of tidal and wave energy into the future energy mix, and I encourage you to go to the OES website and read that report. That will be very topical with the announcement that the COP28 has made over the last few days.
Thank you very much. And the next one is Saeed. I hope I didn't make any mistake, and you are actually from the Coastal Development Partnership from Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jahangir Hassan Masum. I am from Coastal Development Partnership. Basically, this is an organization. It was founded in 1997, and we have started working on climate change in 2001. And in the UNFCCC negotiations, we have started it since 2004, and I personally from 2007. I've been following all these UNFCCC negotiations. So this is one key area, climate change issues. And also in Bangladesh, basically, we have introduced the concept of 100% renewable energy by 2050. And that was a kind of a laughing stock by even the policymakers and others. No, there's a country living with energy poverty. But what we mainly do, we basically implement level. For example, in the OECD DAC forum, in the high-level political forum in the UN, World Future Summit, we will also do advocacy. So we are in a kind of a unique organization that works trust, but also with the job policymakers, the global governance. So somehow we know the politics, how it's functioning on the ground. Some perspectives that why, okay, still I am not much enthusiastic about the technology and other things, but some of the narratives, what we do, especially try to promote people's narratives in the global policy arena, because most of the time we are bombarded by the global think tanks policy narratives that sometimes disconnected with the people's narratives. So I'll try to explain that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next we have Ms. Li Jing from JA Solar.
Hello everyone, I'm Li Jing, Head of Carbon Management and Sustainability at JA Solar, and I'm happy to participate in this side event and share some of our practice on carbon reduction. And my goal for COP28 is to show the world how China works towards sustainable development and make more friends here. And please help, yeah. This we have entered an era of global blooming. As the global climate action is urgent. Currently, 133 countries and regions has proposed net zero emission, and more than 116 of Fortune Global 500 has raised carbon neutrality target. And JA Solar has also been committed to contributing the sustainable development. We have set 5 midterm 2030, such as 15% reduce in total GHG emission and 100% sustainability-related certification of mainstream suppliers. Yeah, I think maybe next slide. You need to, yeah. Yeah, this is our strategy. And in addition, we have you can see our long-term strategy and mid-term strategy. Yeah, out a 3-year carbon inventory that includes scope 1, 2, 3, where we have reached a 27% share of green power use and a 33% reduction in the intensity of our operation-wide GHG emission. And next. As of the third quarter of 2023, JA Solar achieved cumulative module shipment of 166 gigawatt. We generate 2,015 billion gigawatt-hour of clean electricity annually, equivalent to planting 12 billion trees, which helps reduce global CO2 by 260 million tons. And in the future, JA will continue working on sustainable development and cooperate with all parties toward a sustainable future. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. As we can see, we again has a very diverse panel. So the next question is actually about money, because everybody knows we can talk about technology, talk about solution, talk about policy as much as we want, but money is what makes the world go around. So my question for all the panelists is, what barriers exist to scaling up finance for accelerating decarbonization? And what innovative solutions have you seen or implemented on finance to tackle those barriers?
Okay, well, thanks. Yes, money does make the world go round. We all know that. So if you consider that the average cost of solar fell 90% from 2009 to 2023, and onshore wind actually declined by 2/3. We just have like a whole new host of options, right? Clean energy is so exciting. How can we really manage this financing piece? And we really need innovative solutions that can really, one of the only ways that we're really going to be able to do this in the US and around, do long-term planning for our projects, which are online for, sort of stacked. You get sort of your base tax credit through meeting your labor objectives. and just and equal pay for our labor unions. And then layering onto that, you get additional tax incentives if you buy domestic content, right? And our government is still pretty much figuring out, how that actually gets implemented. And then I'll just say quickly, lastly, we have something called energy communities. So if you build projects in areas that have historically had marginalized communities that have been victim of fossil fuel generation, and low unemployment, if you build in those areas, you get additional tax incentives. So
I think I'll take a bit of a different perspective. I heard the previous panel highlighting, the very positive feeling about we've gone a long way, over the last 10 years. Well, actually, if you look at the objectives in the Paris Agreement, we are actually falling short quite significantly. And so now we are setting up even more ambitious objectives. And so exactly to externalities are accounted in the price of fossil fuels. We've heard in the various panels over the last few days, that $7 trillion of subsidies are still going into the fossil fuel industry, money that could be redirected towards, renewable energy. But on top of that, if we actually pay the exact cost of our oil and gas, including all the externalities based on the impact it has in our societies, suddenly the rationale is totally different and the economical equation is totally different. I think also that we need a different approach to the risk appetite. When it comes to developing or funding research or developing technology, in the wave and tidal energy industry, which I'm very involved in, we've got a very incremental approach whereby, we go from technical readiness level 2, 3, 4, and so on by, chopping small funding and small support from various investors and various governments. We need to have a risk appetite from the investors, whether they are governmental or private, which is commensurate to the emergency of the climate crisis. And so I want to make a parallel with the space industry, which I think is very interesting. If you look at SpaceX, they've got a very specific approach where it's try, fail, learn, and repeat. And we've seen that recently in their rocket that has exploded, and no big deal. We've learned a lot and we keep moving, and I think we need to have that kind of approach, when we develop renewable energy technology, because again, we don't have the time. So we need to accept that it's not going to be perfect immediately, but we are going to fail, we're going to lose money, but we are going to learn a lot and actually leapfrog the technological development towards the implementation of our
Great point.
target.
Thank you very much. Fail, try again until we make it. Please.
Okay, thank you. I think people talk about the finance, and this could be a very key challenge for the north, but for the southern context, it's not only the finance, it's also people's faith on renewable energy, especially, because the way people have been, technology is promoted in the global south, is very limited capacity. They can harness from that energy. So they always thought grid electricity is much better than this solar electricity because they have not seen the full potential of the solar electricity. This is one area because we always thought, because there is a big market global transportation and other things like the other industry, the value chains, So this value chain, you also have to build in the global south, even if you want to put the carbon emissions in this industrial context, That, I think there is still, in the global south, very few universities have a course or degree on this renewable technology. Put money, you cannot use it if you don't have the manpower. So you have to devise a plan simultaneously. That's why in Bangladesh we are trying to build a roadmap. Roadmap is not only the technology, not only 100% renewable energy. It's a kind of a whole transformation. That's why we believe just transition is also not an appropriate word. We need just transformation because you're changing the whole system into another level. Transition is kind of an ad hoc management approach. You are gradually 40 or 50 years because it is our next level of civilization we are talking about. So which kind of energy we will choose? So in that context, I think all the stakeholders have to come together and maybe build a kind of a multi-stakeholder forum and discuss academia, technology, business, people, no, consumers, how we can want to have a common vision. So I feel we need a vision first for this renewable energy, involving global North and South together in the same table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jahangir. I think we are sitting at one of those conferences that you're mentioning to talk about the issue. 李晶女士，我们这次的问题是，您能不能简短的聊一下绿色金融在促进减排之中的作用？我可以帮您翻译。
Yeah, I can speak English if I need. Yeah, you know, the ESG market is a big market in the world, but it's still a baby in China. So we need more companies like JA Solar with disclosure or ESG event on the COP28 to show us to whole world. And I think we need more Chinese bank and finance institutions to join like PRI and to make the choice and increase the capital scale to ESG. I think.
Just for the audience benefit, what does PRI stand for? Thank you.
Yeah.
Explain
PRI.
what does PRI stand
PRI
for.
联合国负责人投资原则. I don't know how to translate it. Yeah, I'm sorry. UNPRI. It's a standard and to make the decision when they invest other like a company like GA, they must have
Minutes to answer. So how can we collaboratively engage all sectors of society, including vulnerable communities and developing regions, in a net zero transition in a manner that ensures mutual benefits and maintains widespread public support for decarbonization?
Yeah, so I'm so glad we're talking about that. I feel that through my last 3 days here at COP, this has been a topic that has been front and center in so many discussions I've had, small discussions, panel discussions. It is so critical for this energy transition that we're bringing communities along with us. And the question is, how do we do that? And historically, as corporates, we're not even, we're learning, right? We're really learning, like, how do we do this in like a just and equitable way? And I think there's a social piece and there's an environmental piece to that, right? The social piece is, you know, we're entering communities, and how do we do that? When do we do that? What are the conversations that we're having with community members so that they are truly our partners in energy generation development, right? And what does partnership really look like? And I've heard recently, you know, over the past day, there's some really interesting research about opportunities for engagement. And I think as, you know, from the development community, we have to find that in the right avenues, because without it, we're just not going to be able to do this energy transition in a just and equitable way, and we're just not going to get support from our communities, which will, of course, you know, hinder development.
Thank you very much. Christoph?
Yeah, no, it's a very complex problem actually, and which is prevalent in most of the discussions effectively over the last few days. So I think there is still a part which is the education and science part. You know, I think we've come a long way. We went from denial of climate change to general consensus and acceptance. We're still facing some challenges whereby, notably in Australia, you know that, yes, we need to fight climate change, and we need renewable energy, but not in my backyard. You know, I don't want to see it, I don't want to hear about it. So how do we actually, again, leapfrog Australia at the moment where there's a, and fighting that is actually additional effort, and us as a scientific community, we actually don't have necessarily the tools to do that. So we need to get up to speed. I think another piece of the puzzle, again, is the understanding of the value proposition. We talk a lot about mitigating impact, but we don't develop a positive narrative about what are the benefits that are actually coming with all of that. And when we talk about vulnerable communities, understanding the context is quite fundamental. In Australia, you've got a lot of remote communities that are powered by diesel. When you bring renewable energy, you actually displace diesel, which is extremely expensive to transport and to burn, and you provide additional socio-economical benefit, notably in public health, you know, and so on. And so developing the value proposition is very important. But then the last piece of the puzzle, and I think something that is missing in the narrative, is that we don't explain the alternative of not doing anything.
How the global industry, business, how they can really contribute in the decarbonization, especially how you can totally stop the fossil fuel use.
Right incentive, we can accelerate this transition. And the parallel I always make is that try to put yourself back in early February 2020, and I'm telling you, in 3 weeks' time, we're going to shut down the world economy, ground all the planes, and lock everybody in home. And everybody would say this is just impossible. It doesn't make any sense at all. As a university professor, we've been talking about getting online teaching for years and thinking that was a 5 years endeavor, and we actually did it in 3 months. 3 weeks actually, to be clear. So everything is possible with the right incentive, and the right mindset, and so I truly believe that. And I think what we are missing, it's the political will to actually cut the ties with the fossil fuel industry and lay the ground for an accelerated transition.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll just say, with respect to the presence of oil and gas here, I think, well, look, we cannot meet our energy generation needs on renewable energy alone, right? That's the state of the world. That's where we are. If we want to turn the lights on, we're going to need oil and gas, and that is just our reality right now. I guess sort of taking an optimistic view, many oil and gas companies are committed to the energy transition. And while there are, a significant amount of oil and gas lobbyists here, I mean, we've all read about that, and it is super complex, as you said, and it is a fight. I guess, hoping that through COP we can bring them along for the energy transition. What they're all doing here is, we don't really know. But it's the state of the world that we are in right now, right? And we need to bring them along, I think, is my message on that. And we are not going to have the energy transition without the oil and gas super majors alongside us. We need their capital, we need their infrastructure, and we need their buy-in, right? So.
Completely understand. Yeah. Transition can only happen if we provide stability, because otherwise, let alone transition, we can't even run our society efficiently. But I'm sure, Jahangir, you might have a different perspective.
I think, for example, they're also a stakeholder. If you transparently participate in a process, that's fine. But my only objection is they have naturally more resources to participate, so more people can, So, for example, when I see the US or my German delegation has a big team, and the Bhutan delegation has only 2 members, I see that's an injustice. No? So it's same country, same voting power, but that's injustice because they have more resources, more manpower to deal with this negotiation than the others. The same way, if you allow like more than 2,000 people, the same lobby, so they, of course, in a room, they will take more space. So others might not even enter that room. So that's kind of an equity issue. So the participation, because last year we also advocated, civil society, that they have to disclose who are coming from what. And there should be a ratio of percentage. Because it should not really, they should not occupy the whole space, because this is, no space is enough. If you allow one group to be there and their voice will be only heard. So that's another point. And also I think we have to really focus on this phase out of the fossil fuel, because many industries are changing their investment in the renewable energy because they have the analysis. They know that their business will not be sustainable. Because in many areas, even in India, they have closed down many coal power plants because renewable energy is cheaper. So it's a simple math. And these guys, basically, they are buying time. The process, the more they can do the delayed, they will have more time, so they can reinvest in somewhere. So this is a kind of and that's why you will see a lot of delay in the decision-making process. And UNFCCC has one very weakness because this is a consensus-based decision-making. Because in somewhere, if it is a kind of 80% voting agreed, that would be much more easier. That's why this is a very slow process, and they know that, and they are making it much more slower. So I personally think that there should be kind of a percentage or quota based. That way they have this different stakeholders have a representations. There should be a representation ratio. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if we're looking for some balance, let's come to Ms. Li Jing, because China is the fastest developing economy, which rolling out enough or the most renewable resources that we can see today, but we're also unfortunately one of the largest consumer for gas and oil and coal.
Several sentences, and I think some will do the right things. Although everyone said it's complicated and it's hard to everyone, to the world, to every countries, to every companies, but I still believe that we are on the right path to do the hard and right things for the climate action, for the better future. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. Is there any question from the audience or online, please?
George, can I follow up?
Of course, yeah.
Just briefly on that,
Yeah,
because
please.
it's such an important point, you know, and I think I want to highlight, I completely agree with Thomas on the previous point, but 3 years ago, I thought we were in a very good state of mind with the oil and gas industry, which I've been working with for the last 15 years, you know. So, and I think it has changed significantly over the last 3 years, and we've seen many CEOs being replaced, and a focus that had changed in their priorities. I think we need to be fully aware of that. And the second point is that it echoes what I've been mentioning earlier, you know, about the narrative and the alternative. You know, we promise the apocalypse if we don't have the oil and gas as a transition, you know, but we don't explain what's going to happen if we have 2.8 degrees increase in temperature instead of 2.4 because of the additional carbon that we have emitted. I mean, between the two apocalypses, you know, which one are we choosing? And we don't explain that very clearly, and I think that's missing into the equation.
Thank you very much. Please, microphone, please.
My name is Kai Zimmermann from Germany, and I have a comment on Bangladesh and Australia, especially on the topic that everyone's saying no renewables on my backyard. A few years ago I created a citizen energy cooperative in my village, 100 people, 50,000 euro budget. A few years later we are more than 1,500 members with far more than 1 million euros and a lot of realized renewable energies. Could you take that over in your position to make the citizens part of the story and say, if renewables in my backyard, I want to be part of the ownership? That's one question. And the second question is how you see the gaps between the political levels. Let me give an example. I also represent a company. We have 3 destinations in Germany. We want to build between 3 and 6 megawatts PV power on each of our destinations. In one state of Germany, the cities say, give us the idea, we will approve it in 2 months, let me say. In the state of Baden-Württemberg, we need to change the area system. It takes 1 to 1.5 years, and each plant cannot reduce 7,500 tons of CO2 emission because we have to wait until the local city approves that. I had spoken to the German government, to the state minister, and they both told me, why? We have a climate protection law. And I say it's a gap between the climate protection law and the city law, let me say. So what do you think on the political gaps?
Let me jump in very quickly before I pass the question on to the panel. So UK is one of the leading bad example of not in my backyard. We essentially banned onshore wind development quite some time ago. However, the government just lifted the ban this year, so that means we can continue to develop new onshore wind projects in the UK at the moment. I'm not saying everybody's ready, because if you're asking somebody, the biggest landowner, I don't think they're supporting this project. However, that's something addressing the gap between policy and people, is the politician or the policy always have to be a little bit forward and a little bit pushy. So I think that's why the UK government is making the decision to make the development allowed, to making sure the people who's against it basically start to adjust in paying, if I may say. please, if anyone wants to comment on the question.
I think for this citizen model, no, that's one in Bangladesh we have been trying because the solar home system did not really have that much impact. It's only a minimum level. So we said that the future energy should be in the form of renewable electricity, and that should really, quality should be as such that they can do everything. So they can meet all their energy demands. But the challenge for in Bangladesh context, that's why also the technological improvement is important because we have very limited land. So it's a very small country, but very large population. So you need very interesting technology. For example, the sunflower solar model could be very ideal for Bangladesh, but that's expensive. If you can reduce the cost, that could be ideal for like that kind of situation. And also, in our banking system, nobody is really interested for long-term financing because renewable system payback period is relatively longer in our context. So what you can do, also there exists no business model. For example, in Germany you have cooperative model and other. We don't have any business model as such that could be. Some companies are there, they're private companies, they're trying to do, but because of the feed-in tariff system we have introduced, so they're basically leveraging that policy things. So, in fact, even if you have a good policy, the citizens might not be able to access it because of the lack of finance, lack of technological supports and others in Bangladesh context. But you can have a build partnership from technical experts, and then you can involve the community and use their resources, for example, land, wasteland and other things, train up them, and then you can form a new kind of business model. Because also in Bangladesh context, there is another challenge for renewable energy, the frequent disaster. So it's not only like a cyclone and a storm, we have like 15 kinds of natural hazard that frequently affects in different parts of the country. Sometimes even lightning can destroy the whole panels. So this is our challenge. We are still very much running, very complicated. But the idea of citizen involvement, citizens' ownership in this process is also feasible in Bangladesh context as well. And we are trying to learn from the developed country experiences where their policy gaps are. The gaps you are highlighting, we are also trying to, so that we don't do the same mistake because we have just started. So we have an advantage to correct ourselves from the mistakes from your mistakes, no? So thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wants to have a go at that question?
So not just maybe in the Australian context, you know, you made the point very well. We talked a lot about social engagement, social license to operate, consultation. We need to step up and move towards community ownership. So how do you bring the people being part of the solution? And that's challenging. You know, there's no simple recipe, but that's how you get basically people behind. Then in terms of the gap between the states, in Australia it's very complex because we've got federal governments that owns the Commonwealth water where the structures are, and state governments, you know, that owns basically the infrastructure and the cable going through and so on, and each state has a different jurisdiction, and so we need, we need all of that, all this legislation to be unified because it's a huge barrier for the development of offshore renewable energy. And recently I was in Europe, and the European Commissioner of Energy made a very strong statement that they are committing to reduce permitting process across Europe to 8 months. You know, to accelerate the deployment of offshore renewable energy, and we need something like that in Australia and in other parts of the world.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the audience for your questions. We're concluding this section by having a huge thanks for all our partners, the University of Plymouth, the Coastal Development Partnership from Bangladesh, and the China Chamber of International Commerce. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to that email address. Thank you.